Hello and welcome back to the Engineer YouTuber. I create videos on machine learning, AI, deep learning, and new technologies. Today we have something really exciting in our store for you guys. We are going to collaborate with Onvo AI, a cutting-edge AI-powered dashboard creation platform, to show you how you can create a stunning and informative dashboard effortlessly. But if you are a non-technical person and you don't know how to use the Python libraries Matplotlib or Seaborn, and you just want to create a dashboard for your company or your project, this video is for you. But before we dive into, if you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell icon so you never miss the techno savvy content. Alright, let's get started. I am joined by Ronald and Rose, who will guide us through the process of creating a dashboard with Onvo AI. So
Thanks,
give
Gaurav.
me.
I'm Ronald. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Onvo, and joining me is Rose as well, who is heading our marketing. So to give you a quick introduction about Onvo, one of the most common pain points we have seen is that startups or smaller companies have some data, but they want to visualize it and they want to be able to embed that in their internal platforms or in their products. And this is a very painful process. As you can imagine, you might have to purchase a very expensive tool. You might have to learn the formulas. You might have to learn the code. And to make it all easy, we have created a very developer friendly tool which has AI to make sure that you can make your visualizations and graphs and charts as easily as possible.
Nice. Can you go through or dive into your website, how it works, how to book a session, how to get connect with API? So we
I'll give you a quick introduction of what this process looks like. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so going into the Onvo dashboard, the first thing you'd be able to do is to connect a data source. So we know that most companies don't have all their data in one place. They usually have it in a Google sheet. You would have it in an Excel file. You might have it as a REST API. You might have multiple databases. So we support all of that out of the box. Even cloud platforms like Airtable, Google Sheets that you might use. So I'm going to jump into one that we've already set up and created. This is a sample data set called customers, and it holds data of some sample customers. So in this case, I've just uploaded an Excel file, and you can just verify that all the data is available in the sample data, all the columns are correct, all the data is looking correct. And then something that's unique is we have something called fields. So, most startups or most companies will have some data or some columns that make sense for their company or for their use case, but it might not make sense for others. So, for example, in India, we have the concept of GST. So, just GST
yes.
might not make sense for AI, but you might have to say, that it is a tax. So if you describe that, so for example, in this case, we have something called segment, which is a very vague term, but you can say it's a customer segment based on spending ability. So as soon as you do this, the AI can now understand, okay, this is what you're trying to say. Now, once you create a data source, you can then create a dashboard. And how a dashboard works is you can connect multiple data sources together. So for example, you might want to make dashboards on customers and on your orders. And you can just give it a name and a description, click create, and you're done. For today, I'll just show you one that we have already set up. So this one is called like an e-commerce dashboard. It's a sample template that is available for everybody. And you can see what is already there. So you can see, the total number of customers, the total number of orders, the lifetime value, and so on. And you can, scale and change this however you like. But for now, I'll just show you how you can create a new chart because this, I think, is the most exciting part. So let's say you want to create a bar chart that shows you, your annual sales year over year. And how you do that is you just say create a bar chart showing the annual sales in USD year over year. And you click generate chart. And that's it. You don't have to write any formula. You don't have to write any code. So the first thing the AI will do is it tries to give you its assumptions of what it thinks it should do. So I'm going to use this field for the date. I'm going to use this field for the value. And if any of those assumptions are wrong, you can go ahead and update the prompt, obviously. And after that, it starts generating the code that's needed. So this is very different from like other platforms where you have to write the code or you have to write the formula. Here, the AI will do it for you. And obviously, you can customize this if you are, looking to change it, or if you think something is wrong or something can be optimized, you can obviously go and do that. And right after that, the widget is created. So that's it. You can see the data. You can hover over it. You get the tooltip. You have a title that's generated by the AI as well, but obviously you can customize this. And as soon as you click Save Changes, we add that to your dashboard, and you can scale it up as in how you like, and you're set. But we understand that even after you create a dashboard, you might have questions to ask your dashboard. So sometimes you open the dashboard and you're like, I would like to know which customer is actually my best customer, like who's purchasing the most from me. And in that case, you can ask questions. So if I ask, which state has the highest sales volume, it'll tell me which state has the highest sales volume and the amount. And just like a widget, you can check on the assumptions. You can make sure that's correct. And after all this, you're happy with this dashboard. You want to share it with your team or you want to share it with your customers. You can just click share link. And just like you'd share a Google Sheet or a PowerPoint document, you can just copy this link and send it to anyone. And obviously, we know that startups like to make sure everything looks correct and looks nice. So we obviously have theming, so you can change the colors, you can change the fonts if you want, and you can also set granular permissions. So you can say this person can ask questions, this person can edit the dashboard, and in the internal company, who has view access, who has edit access, obviously. And along with that, we know dashboards are not the only use case. So sometimes you might want to make a tabular data. So a lot of the times you want to make like a tabular data that you can then download as Excel or CSV and then work with that in another program. And we are totally okay with that. So for example, this one shows customer, the number of orders and sales. And how you do this is exactly the same way as a dashboard. So you just kind of give it a prompt, and then you can specify what column headers you want and what should the columns contain. So for example, this is the ID of the customer, the number of unique orders, and the sales by the customer in USD. Now, something that's super unique is, in Excel, you might have a formula to convert US dollars to Indian rupees. You might have like a multiplication or something. Here, you can just say in INR, and the AI will figure out that the data is in US dollars. You want it in INR, and it'll apply the conversion factor by itself. So you don't have to write that formula by yourself. And just like a dashboard, you can ask questions to your report. You can embed it the same way, and you're set up. And because I'm guessing a lot of you are engineers like myself, you might definitely want to play around with this and play around with the API. So we have some pretty good integrations that are either built in or coming soon. And we have really good documentation. So for example, if I go to the API documentation, it contains all the data that you need to work with our APIs. So whether it's to create a dashboard or embed a dashboard, you can choose which language you want, and everything is well detailed. And obviously, it's in dark mode because engineers love dark mode. Uh, and along with that, we also have native SDK. So we have Node.js right now, and we have open source collaborators building our Rust API SDK as well as Ruby on Rails. And we have things like the React library coming soon, so that it makes it much easier. And again, just like any API platform, you can generate your keys from here. You can set whitelist for which domains should access it and which don't for super security. And at any time, if you have any questions or clarifications, you can always book a call with us, and we would love to get on a call, understand your requirements, and help you set this up on your platform.
Nice, nicely explained. I have like 10 to 15 questions right now, so I'll
Fire
go one
away.
by one. Yeah. So my first question, when you are thinking about creating this website on Onvo AI, what is your
Yeah.
primary goal, or what is your primary purpose to solve the problem like you face in your past? Like you face some dashboard creation or analytical problems in your past. So you think about it and you started creating. What was the purpose you started creating the Onvo AI?
Yeah, so great question. So, I think one of the biggest factors, so even when we were in college or when we were in high school, we were always trying to build our own startup, right? We were always trying to do something. But the most common thing that came up is, you set up a website and you have maybe a mixed panel that's doing analytics tracking. You might have, Facebook or Instagram analytics so that you get, data from there. And to get all this data in one place was always a challenge. So, we would have like a Google sheet, and then every day morning we would copy the data and put it there, copy this data and put it here, and then you have a report. Then to make a chart out of that was another headache. And, always this was a problem. And, we talked to quite a few startups and they have the same thing. So most, B2B startups or most startups that have a lot of data want to be able to show their data to their customers. And right now, the only way to do it is you have to create these dashboards and reports by hand. And there's a lot of issues with that because now you have to consider, how do you set up an API? What is the UI framework that you're going to use? How do you manage caching? How do you manage security? Like, one company should not see the data of another company. Or like caching is very important because if you have a data set of like 10,000 rows, if you're going to load that every time you make the dashboard, obviously it's going to be very slow. So we, had to keep building these dashboards and reports every time until we said, why not make it easier for developers to just integrate this, like how you'd integrate Stripe. So now, companies don't have to build their own payment gateway every time they start a new startup. We just integrate Stripe. We want to do the same for dashboards.
Now I'll move to the second question. So what type of data source, like as you mentioned before, like CSV data, or it is a batch type of data, or it may be a online or real-time data. We can
Yeah.
connect any kind of data. So if I have a IoT data, is it possible to connect with IoT data? Is it possible to connect with batch data? How am I going to connect with those type of data?
Great. Yeah. So lovely question. So we have thought about all the different use cases. So sometimes you might have data that you manually put. So maybe your salespeople are filling it in Airtable or Google Sheet. That's one. The other one might be data that you have on database. So the most common databases that we have found is SQL, Postgres, and MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. So if you use any of that, again, you can just connect it directly. So you just have to put in like the database credentials and what tables or what rows you want to get or what view. And finally, we do have REST APIs. So sometimes you get data into your company from another company's REST API. So if you use maybe like an ERP platform, you might have some kind of data integration. In that case, again, you can just use the REST API. And alongside that, there's a bunch of big cloud platform providers. So, companies usually use Salesforce for their CRM. They might use Shopify for their online store. They might use HubSpot for CRM. In which case, we are also building out these, one-click connectors. So essentially, you can just click, log in using that system, and then the data comes in to make it as easy as possible to get any kind of data. Whether it's internal sales data, IoT data, all of that works out of the box.
Great, great. So yeah, that's great. So I'll move for next question. If I have a different type of data, and if like how much time it take a data to be display on analytical view, means the frequency of data, like if I have a timing data or a date time data or a weekly data, how much time it take to reflect that data on dashboard? Means if I have write a code on a prompt, so how much
Yeah.
time it take?
That is a very, very important question. So, the most important thing for a dashboard is to be updated as often as possible because you don't want to look at a dashboard, you see bad data, and then, you ask the engineers, why is the data so off? And then they say, oh, yeah, it's because it syncs once a day or once a week or once a month. And we want to remove as much of the headache as possible. So, if I was to show you, I'm just literally going to do this live. This is a data set with about 10,000 rows and it takes less than 2 seconds. And the beauty of this is we have built a very sophisticated caching mechanism. So all the data is cached from our end. So how it works is as soon as you load the dashboard, it loads the last cache, which is never more than 24 hours old. And as soon as it loads, in the background, what we're doing is we are fetching the most updated data, and then seamlessly it integrates that. So if there is no change in the data, you won't see anything. If there is something that updated, you'll see the number actually update. So what we want to pride ourselves on is that the data on your dashboard is always up to date, regardless of how big the data is or any of that. In the future, we are planning on adding caching set by the developer. So maybe a developer will say, my database should not be hit this often because maybe it's an expensive query. So you can set the cache limit to say once a day or once a week or once a month, and we will reflect that to make sure that we don't hit any of these systems too hard.
Like a scheduler, you can create a scheduler, and after that it will if it is a weekly or it is a daily, it will reflect all the data on that dashboard, right?
Exactly, yeah. So by default, it's live, but you can say, I only want it once a day, or I only want it once a week, or maybe it's even more ingrained. So I want it on Sundays and Tuesdays. That's it. Because it depends on every company use case. So maybe if your company starts work on Monday, Sunday night, get the latest data and update the dashboard. So we are, totally fine with that.
Nice, great. So now next question I have, like, who are the audience for your dashboard? Means like who can use this Onvo AI as a creating a dashboard? Might be a different type of domain, like in data science or in industry, like as you mentioned, we have e-commerce, or after that IoT data, maybe a oil and industrial data. So who is the audience, or who can use this dashboard creation?
Yeah. So, when we built this platform, we wanted to make sure that we wanted to target as many industries as possible. So it's not specific to one industry because, we feel that this is something that pretty much every company that's starting up needs. We have very different use cases. So, for example, a personal use case I have is my mom runs an Airbnb. And what she does is, Airbnb doesn't have a very good internal dashboard. So what we do is we have all the data that goes into a Google Sheet, and then here I can show what this data looks like. So how many guests are there, how many nights the guest spending, and so on. So that she has an internal dashboard. So even for your personal use case, you might have your personal finances, or maybe from your phone, you might have your health data. So, how many steps you've taken, how much sleep you've gotten. And we have people who would like to take that data and, put that into a dashboard. And, we're currently working with one of our friends who's building their own app to monitor their health data. And they would be using a dashboard like this to essentially use that. Also, we have companies that are using it for their sales people. So, the salespeople usually don't want to go and trouble the developer and say, can you make a dashboard for this? Or can you update this dashboard? They just want to be able to ask questions like, how many of my customers converted last week? And they just want the answer. They don't want a whole new system to ask questions. And then obviously the biggest use case is for developers because a lot of their time is spent on creating and editing and maintaining these dashboards. And essentially, we want to be able to help them, just integrate it. And obviously, data analysts as well. So, for a lot of data analysis tasks, you might need more expensive, bigger hardware because you might want to do, very expensive, complicated computations. So you might use tools like Pandas, you might use tools like Google Colab for this. But there is a lot of use case of, you have just like an Excel file and you want to get some quick data out. In which case we think this will be super helpful because you don't have to, provision your hardware. You don't have to install all the Python requirements. You don't have to worry about Python mismatch. You can kind of just do it here, export it for your team if you need to, and then you can also create a report so that you can continue working on it if you want to.
Great. So, and what are the technique I can use in my analysis, like charts, bars, or plots, or any kind of table or a map? Like if I have a geographical data, can I show on a map view? Is it possible here to show on a map view?
Great question. So, currently, since, we've just launched with like a month ago, so we have support for all the basic plots. So, if you can think of, the line charts, area charts, pies, donuts, bar graphs, scatter plots, all that is available. And, we have heard feedback from engineers such as yourself that we want access to more data. So, things like heat maps is very important for cohort analysis. Things like a real world map is needed for geographical data. Uh, some people have asked for 3D graphs because it's a little more flashy when you put on a presentation. So we are currently working on that, and we have essentially a canny backlog. So any engineer can say, "I would like this chart," and everyone else can upvote and downvote, and we use that to prioritize our product development.
So I have one more question. How
Yeah.
how am I going to connect with API? So if I'm a developer and I want to change something, or I want to connect with my own laptop and I want to do some changes over there. So or I just want to write a code on a prompt, and that will be reflect on this software, or on a dashboard creation. So how am I going to connect with API, and how to create a API over here? Yeah.
Okay, so I can just show you a quick demo of a data source with an API. So if I just click on create data source, I'll call it REST API. One second, REST API test. You can skip the description if you don't want, and you can click REST API call. And here in configuration, you can essentially say what endpoint you want to call it to. So maybe it's HTTPS API dot test.com slash b1 slash endpoint. And in the API method, obviously you can choose get or post. We support both. And if you put post, you can also specify your headers, and you can specify the return type. And sometimes if it is, an object with an array inside, you can literally say data dot data or data dot array, depending on the shape of your data. Now, something that's unique is, obviously when you call a REST API, it depends on who is calling it, right? So if you call the REST API, you would get a different result, and if I'm calling the REST API, I'll get a different result. So maybe if you have, an element called user ID, so I'll just put user ID, and here what's unique is I can put variables in here using double curly braces and put session dot user ID. And as soon as you do that, every call that you make will be dependent on who is calling it. So you can see the user parameters here as well, just to get your session parameters right. And in headers, you can even put things like API key, and that is session.api. So now what happens is every time you embed this on your platform, along with the embed URL, you can also pass these variables. So for example, for you, you will get, the user ID is your user ID and the API key is yours. For me, when I log in, I will see the user ID and the API key for me. So when the dashboard is calling the data source, it'll put in these variables to make sure that the REST API gets the data for you separately, REST API gets the user for me separately, and then the dashboard is always up to date that way. So this way we can essentially make sure that you can customize this as and how you need it. You can get as granular or as basic as you want. Like if you have just one API key, you can do that as well.
Nice, nice. It is. Uh, if my one of my viewer, or my most of viewers are a student, or they are from a startup, or they are just looking for trying to create a startup, or they are in the industry. So
Right.
if they want to connect with you, or they want to book a session, how they can book a session, or how can they get a free session to know more about Onvo AI?
Yeah, good question. So, on our website, which is onvo.ai, you can go ahead and the first thing you would see is book a demo. And as soon as you click book a demo, you can schedule a time that is convenient for you. So, depending on your time zone and depending on your date, you can do that. Along with that, we know developers want to just jump in and try the product for themselves. So we do have the login right here. You can just click login, sign up with your account, and we give a free tier. So that's one dashboard and one report is available for free. So you can try it out with your own data. You can, maybe upload an Excel document, make sure everything's fine. Or if you don't have a document with you, we have a sample dashboard. So the e-commerce dashboard I showed you is available for everyone. So you can try it out, play around with it. You can ask questions to it. You can change the widgets. And once you're happy with it, you can go to one of our paid plans that allows for, a lot more dashboards, a lot more reports, and as well as integrations with APIs and so on.
So yeah, that was the questions I have throughout my in my mind actually. That's all.
Awesome. Gaurav, thanks for having us. We really appreciate the fact that, you have a YouTube channel that's, helping to facilitate the learning of data analysis because, it's now a booming field and everyone wants to get into it. But, I've had a lot of my friends asking me, how do I get into it? Like, I know how to code in maybe JavaScript. I know how to code in Node or Python, but what part of data analysis is it that I'm not doing already? And platforms such as yours helps them, get into the flow, understand what it means to be a data analysis or data analyst, and do this as a business, get a job, or even as a hobby. A lot of people want to play around with this and see, is this something I really want? And we really, believe in that mission. We want to make sure that everyone can do data analysis. Like we don't think it should be gate kept by oh, you need to have a master's degree and a PhD, and you need to be a professional coder who knows Python and R and has like a beefy 3080 or 3090 GPU to be able to run this. We believe that everyone should be able to do this. So it was super nice to work with you, Gaurav, to get this out there and work with you as well to make sure that people have access to the tools that they need.
Yeah, actually, it is very informative, and even I learn a lot of things from this session. And I'll definitely say from this session, my viewers will going to learn a lot of things, and they will connect with you. And I'll say thank you for means giving us chance to connect with you. Actually, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Gaurav. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. And I just want to say to my viewers, if you like this video, make sure you comment down below. If you have any problem related to or any issue related to just contact with Onvo AI or just comment down below. They will make sure to reply on this video also. And thanks for watching this video. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
And
guys.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'll say bye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.